afternoon, everyone. It's Ron Yengich. I'm here with Bill Frost at the studios in South Salt Lake, and we have a visitor here today. John Saltas, you're back.
Yeah, I'm limping my way back to the States. I've been gone a month. Was in Greece. We mentioned that City Weekly does a tour every year, and we had two groups this year. I ended up staying a month because there were two groups that went back to back, and that's been the case the last 3 years. So, yeah, I'm back and pretty sore, to tell you the truth.
Well, are you sore because your Cubs are down 2-0 to my Brewers? I'm wearing my Brewers shirt,
Yeah.
and you told me.
Might also note the Yankees are down 2-0.
Yeah, I was not going to bring that up. I thought that would be
That was more painful.
That would be hard, but and we talked about this. You have a torn muscle in your
My right Achilles? No, not Achilles. What's that big hamstring?
Yeah.
So, I was walking. I was already limping anyway. I mean, I'm old and frail, right? So I was already sore, but then just walking normally, of all the times to get it, just casually walking, and bang, I felt a snap, like, your rubber band snap. I about go down into traffic, and God, it hurt like hell. And then it got all bruised.
Is it quadricep? Or
whatever it is, glute, whatever that connects to your ass bone, connected to the hip bone, whatever the bone muscles are. Yeah, right there.
So that's a sympathetic thing. The Brewers' great young player, Jackson Churio, injured his.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he may be out for the next game, too, on Wednesday. But
if he comes back, I want to know what the recovery method is, because I'll take any hard drug right now.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a matter of drugs. It's a matter of youth when it comes back. That's a tough injury.
That's a tough thing to accept, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had that. And, the thing about all those injuries I've learned over the years is old age just is a surprise every day. You never know when you're going to hurt. But we're glad you're back safely. Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to Utah Music Radio. And that's a website, and they are running this podcast. Bill, I think you said Friday nights specifically?
I think it's Mondays.
Monday nights. I was close. And then they also have the past podcast, and we want to thank them. It's an important site for people who are musicians and have groups, or individual musicians, as I understand it, and looking at it, that are from Utah, and so they have a platform where they can have people learn who they are. And to that end,
are you talking the site that is it? John has it. John and Mario, right? There we go. Yeah, those are the two guys that reached out a long time ago.
Yeah,
I didn't know they were doing that. That's good guys.
Yeah, and we want to thank them for that, and also just for what they do. Being an artist is hard, and I was going to mention this at the end. I have my neighbor to the north of us has a band called Sindar, and we're going to, and their new CD releases Tower of the Sun, and so Bill's going to take a photograph of that, so those who would like to listen to them. It's an eclectic musical group. This new CD that they just released, and they had their release party last week, or 2 weeks ago actually. It's heavy metal. That's my word for it. But it's fusion too, because the lyrics are very interesting and they are really excellent musicians. So take a look at that too and support them if you can. Support Utah Music Radio, again, giving us local artists. And as someone who is not a musician but who loves music, and the more I've learned about it, particularly with Bill's help, but also from my dear friend Jeff Hall, who's a great musician, it's just stunning to me the quality of musicianship of people that are not names, but they can do amazing things.
Yeah, I don't remember. There's been studio bands, session bands, they called them back then, that did all the background music for all like the Motown bunch, and I think those guys, the Wrecking Crew, I think did the Beach Boys and all that. California.
They did everybody, the Grassroots. They did everybody in that era that was recorded out of Los Angeles. I forget the name of the house band at Motown. There's a great documentary that is about that. It's funny and it's good. The name will come to me, but I mean...
Well, yeah, those guys could play.
They can play everything. I mean, the Wrecking Crew also was the band that backed Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and that for their recording. So Wonderful. I think we mentioned it before, but I love that stuff, and that documentary is worth looking at.
It's there's guys in Nashville do the same thing.
Right.
That's all they do is play.
And again, there's a
Pickers.
documentary about them, and Leonard Skinner talks about the band that was at Muscle Shoals that was so good. Again, and a lot of these people became stars. For example, in that regard, Jerry Reed became a big star. Glenn Campbell played on virtually all of the Beach Boys albums and toured with them.
He played on the you might know the song Tequila.
Yeah, he did. He played on.
He was the guitarist on Tequila, and it was like he's got this variety show in the 60s with the pretty hair and pretty boy and dating all the pretty women, and he did that.
No,
I had no idea.
If you want, I mean, if you're real,
That guy could play.
People that are interested in it, there is a video of him playing with an orchestra where he plays one of the great compositions of one of the great composers behind his back with the guitar over his head and behind his back, and he plays it note for note perfectly.
Yeah,
I mean they were fantastic.
Jerry Reed was incredible.
Jerry, yeah.
Glenn Campbell, the guy that was on Hee Haw, Buck Owens, and the other guy, the big guy. What was his name? Bill. What was his name on Hee Haw? Golly, big guitars, but it'll come to me too late in the program. But yeah. I love the same kind of stuff. I love good music, and I'm always thrilled to find a name associated to something I had no idea, and then make those connections.
It's a wonderful thing. There's a book I'm reading right now. It's about the song Wichita Linesman. It's about the book. The whole book is about that song, and it is reputed to be the greatest unwritten song, unfinished song ever recorded. Old age is a drag, man.
Roy Clark, speaking of old age.
Clark, yeah. And anyway, and it's a good book, and it talks about these very things. So anyway, shout out to the Utah artists that are on Utah Music Radio, and we'll move to the meat of the program today. You're back. You're wounded. But how did the trip go?
We had a great trip. I mean, all in all, it was a great trip. For me personally, it was painful as hell because I had to do everything twice and more than most people. They want to sleep in, they could. If I wanted to, I couldn't. And I've had a knee and a hip replaced and other surgeries all over, and I've just atrophied in my limbs. So I'm weak anyway compared to when I was young and even a few years ago. So having that and then get exacerbated by the tweak I had pulled. Well, it's like in week 2. Just changed my gait, which then changed everything else. And next thing you know, you're hurting everywhere and every step. And we averaged, they say take 10,000 steps a day. Try it. It's not that easy. So we walked a lot, and I was averaging 9,000 steps a day for 30 days, every day. And it's not on like a running track. It's on boulders and, cobblestone and cement streets and steps up and down and crooked this and that. And everything has got to be cautious. Marble all over the place.
And after you'd been drinking, too.
I didn't drink much there. I lost 5 pounds on this trip.
Okay, I take that back.
Yeah, I just made the point. I only drank 2, maybe 4 beers the whole time. And 2 of them were because they were beers I'd never seen before, one on Crete and one on let me think what island that was. That was on the island of Carpathos. And they put herbs and stuff in it, dittany and all kinds of stuff. It was really funny tasting, but funny tasting. So I didn't have a lot of that, and a couple ouzos.
So is beer big in Greece?
They're not necessarily a beer culture per se. There are breweries now. There didn't used to be. So there's local breweries like we have our locals. And there can be a local on Crete or whatever on different islands. They have their own beer, different regions that are notable, and they're good. They really are. Mostly Pilsner lager kind of stuff. They don't play with the IPAs and whatever. But it's not a beer drinking culture. It's a coffee drinking culture. Greeks. I've been there a lot. I've probably now spent. It's closing in on a year's time. In Greece totally, and that's a lot. But I've never seen 3 Greeks drunk. And this comes from a culture that is very open about. You want a wine for the kid? Go ahead, serve it. I don't care. And it's just not the way they are. They, in fact, are the opposite of us, where we ban free popcorn, for example, because they say it'll make you drink more. They give you popcorn and then some to say, oh, you shouldn't drink on an empty stomach. You know, it's a whole different philosophy, and actually theirs works, ours doesn't. It really is that simple.
So that, you know what, that would be a great name for a band. Three Greeks Drunk.
Yeah.
And a song, Don't Drink on an Empty Stomach.
Yeah, well, they're not all over. The people, if you see partying or rowdy, are going to be vacationers.
Sure.
I'm not saying Greeks don't have a good time. They have a great time. They got a great lively culture too. But usually the Greeks come out, at least in Athens and so on, to bouzouki joints, 10, 11, 12 at night. That's when they come out. Then they'll play all night long, throwing flowers and drinking champagne and partying up that way. But did you just go out and have cocktails and stuff? No. They go out and have coffee and have a meal.
Let me ask a question. So when I first went to Italy, most of Italy still worked on the idea that they'd have a fiesta or festa in the afternoon. And so all the shops would close, and it was kind of off-putting to a lot of American tourists, but I thought it was cool. Was that ever, and is it still part of Greek culture?
Well, you got to start with the notion that damn near everything is off-putting to an American tourist.
That's a good point.
I mean, we go over there, and I'm not saying that we're innocent either. I mean, we make mistakes when ordering or whatever. So Americans are not adept at adapting, and they're not at all knowledgeable about what other cultures do or think. Not at all. So, yeah, it does happen. It's less frequent, at least in Athens. So when you go to smaller places, you're going to find it more often. I did see it a couple times in Athens, quite a bit in Crete. The shop owners just say, it's 2 o'clock. I'm going to go home, take a nap, come see you at 5.
Yeah.
Whatever their hour is, and come back. Then they work the rest of it. But I mean, you know, the other side of that is, in the United States, the store closes at 6, the mall closes, and tough shit. You come back tomorrow.
Right.
Their mall's open until 11 o'clock at night. Come on, be thankful. When you walk around at night, they're open when it's cooler and more enticing, and it's just a nice time, nice atmosphere.
In Italy, they call it the passeggiata. So you walk around at night, and you see a lot of people walking arm in arm. And is that still part of what happens?
Yeah, it's called Volta. They take a Volta, and again, you'll see that less in Athens. You'll see people walking, but they're not doing Volta. They're just walking from shop to shop, store to store, seat to seat. In a seaside area or in a village or in areas where there's a promenade, you'll see people arm in arm, and they just walk.
Yeah,
They just walk and they talk. One thing that we're not good at is talking, and they're excellent at it. That's all they do is talk.
Less and less is that done. I think that part of where we are now, even people our age, we are caught up with our phones. We are caught up in dealing with that. One of the troublesome aspects that I see among people, and I've mentioned this before, this is an old man get off my lawn statement, but it's true in my judgment, that younger people are so used to using their phone for communication, particularly by texting and other things, that they're not good at talking to one another. My granddaughter, who now lives at my home, and is going to graduate school, and who I love and is a wonderful young lady, Jillian, we talk about this all the time. And she decided that she was going to take a month off. She started graduate school. She's going to try to take a month off from most of her social media stuff because she felt that she couldn't do that and immerse herself into school, which I thought was a good idea.
Well, you know, I posted towards the end of the trip. I posted pictures of the trip every day. Wasn't doing any social commentary, nothing political. I don't recall doing anything political on any of the socials that I do. But at the end of it, I put a post up that said, I swear to God, phones are useless. Because nobody uses them for talking anymore. It's just for texting and looking at a map and Googling, you know, which restaurant has a quarter more star than the other one. And it's not for talking. People, you can call them all day. I call my kids, they won't answer. They will not answer.
No.
Emergency, they don't give a shit. They're not going to answer. You know, so there's a whole cultural thing going on there that conversation is passé now. It just doesn't occur like it used to occur.
Well, I'd probably have said this in the past. I'm repeating myself. After 75, you get to repeat yourself as many times as you want, okay? You're grandfathered in. But I quit practicing law in large part because I couldn't communicate with anybody anymore. Where in the old days, if I had a case with a prosecutor, I could call them and I knew I'd get a return phone call. If there was an issue with the court, I could call a clerk and get a hold of a clerk and talk to them. Now it's an email, seldom a text, and the emails don't get returned until whenever they want to. And in large part, a lot of them are returned at 4:58 p.m.
Right.
when everybody's closing down. And it really began to bother me because I felt the need to be able to discuss my client's future with an actual human being and not a phone. And it didn't work. And it really undermined the joy I had in practicing law. I liked that interplay.
It doesn't happen. We become just less and less connected to each other, families even. I know in our family, I'm the one trying the most to talk, on the phone at least. And at least for conversations, I'm passing off small talk is like everybody does that. But boy, we just don't. I would call people on the phone, nothing, and then I would use WhatsApp, which is an app we all could communicate with real easily. And then people would show up. They'd respond to that without saying anything. They just click and they'd show up. So we don't do it the normal way. And blessedly, the opposite's true in Greece. If their phones ring, they pick up. I can count 4 or 5 times easily where we needed somebody right freaking now, like a bus driver that drove away with somebody's phone. Something got lost, had to call the police, a ferry boat that wouldn't let us on. And people answered those phones immediately, and they gave us directions or whatever, and we had everything we had recovered in no time. I just bring that up because I just don't think we would do that here. I've said that on the last program. We don't behave that way here.
Not only that, if you do get through to somebody on a phone, it's Al, AI.
Oh yeah.
And that's who picks up. And I love the ones when they say, "This is Suzanne." You're not Suzanne. That's not your name. Somebody gave you that name. That is not who you are. But let's go to something that you said.
Yeah.
You weren't involved in politics. You put that aside, and I know that because we talked when you were gone, and it did exchange some. You sent me some great photographs and video. What was the attitude of, and compare it to other times you've been in Greece relative to where we are in America and what's going on in America now? Did you have any interplay in regard to that?
This trip, Americans visit Greece, at least, a little bit differently than Europeans. Americans fill up Greece in the summer months, and the September months are European kind of oriented. So I, this time, met more Europeans than I've ever met. Starting on day one, it was Europe, from everywhere in Europe. And then later some Asians and stuff. And yeah, it's astoundingly different than it used to be. And I wrote about in this week's Private Eye, which I wrote on the plane
Thank you
night.
for saying Private Eye, because I always do that.
Well, that's the name of the column.
I know, but I mean, you use that phrase because I call the City Wiki.
I know. It took me a long time to not say that. So uniformly, Americans, USA, not Americans, the USA and our leadership is held in lower and lower and lower esteem. I heard over and over comments like, "Are you freaking crazy? What's wrong with you people? How could you do this? How could you vote for that guy? Why are you letting this happen? Why don't you support humanity?" Just over and over. It wasn't relentless, like people walking up to you and say, "Hey, you're an American, you're crazy." Nothing like that. But if the conversation became such, they were not shy about saying it. I was in Crete on an island. It's a little island off of the island of Crete called Spinalonga. It used to be, I think we talked about, a little leper colony. And there were some tourists there from Poland. And the leader of the group, spoke English. After, I did some stuff. I took a picture for him, gave her camera back, and she goes, "Oh, by the way," and she just laid into Trump because just that afternoon or something like that, Trump had said some things at the UN about their president.
Oh, yeah. We talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's like
time.
There was that one. There was the guy in Crete who was running he never took it off. He just happened to be staying at our hotel. He wore a shirt. You've seen the meme. It's on a meme. It's a picture of Trump with a clown face. Elect a clown, expect a circus. And he wore that everywhere. And he was proud about it. Yeah. You Americans are, in his way. 2 German girls 3 nights ago in Athens, they were going back and forth between English and German seamlessly. And I said, "Well, where are you from?" I thought it was Ireland because one did have an Irish accent. She goes, "No, we're Germans." And And I said, well, how's it going? And she said the same thing. You will not find a German. You'll be hard-pressed to find a single German who supports the United States or Trump right now. And it's just on and on throughout Greece. All the Greeks that at one time were somewhat sympathetic to where Trump was are slowly modifying, going, now, wait a minute. We're pretty uniformly tied to supporting the refugees of this area, and they always come about because somebody else is buying the weapons and shooting the guns, and it displaces people, and they come here. So I'm not real fond of that. Plus, this Palestinian issue has gotten out of hand.
Right.
That's everywhere in Greece, Free Palestine. And people that may not have been that nature or of that yen before became that way. It's just all over. It's just, they're up to here with the fact that women and children are dying daily.
But they lived it. Their families lived it in the past with the fascists from Italy and Germany coming into those areas, and also fighting with the Turks in the past and the histories of those things.
In the recent history, 400s of it was the authoritarian rule of the Turkish Ottomans. And later, in the 20th century, it was the fascists that came in to the west, Italy and Germany. Who was the meaner fascist at the time? Well, Hitler was, right? But Mussolini was a fascist of his own right? So
he nurtured Hitler's ideas and ideals about fascism.
Yeah. So they are they are aware of it, and they are not that far removed of it. It was only 80 years ago when World War II ended as we know it, but it was being fought before we ever got there too. By Europeans and the Cretans all over Greece. Crete lost 20,000 citizens, not army, citizens, to fascist dominion there that came through and just started butchering and they were fighting back. What they were fighting back with? Picks and shovels and broken glass and you name it.
The pain that they felt, though, extended past the end of War II. That they had to rebuild everything, and so it is closer in time to them and closer in space. I think it's the one thing that we as Americans, we talk about all the wars we've won and all of that, and we did great things. I've said it before because I think it's something that's lost on history to Americans. It's not taught in schools anymore. The Marshall Plan, the idea of rebuilding your enemies, rebuilding them, making them your friends by being kind to them.
Well, we killed all that with all that in day one in this new administration.
I know. We took away money from sub-Saharan Africa and a lot of other places that was more important than any guns or bombs or strongman tactics that we could employ, by getting people to understand who we really are as a people.
Well, who are we? I was, getting on a ferry boat, overnight ferry to Athens from Crete. We were just starting to board, and up pulls up a police bus. And out come the two guys with the, what do you call that gun, Ron?
AK-47?
No, that's but there's another.
AR-15?
Damn it. Anyway, it was an automatic something or other, right?
A musket?
No, they're past muskets. But, and out, and they say stop, and from within the bus, it was chock full, seat to seat, men, women, children, some barefoot, some only infants, months old, black former citizens of Sudan.
Yeah.
And why are they there? Because they can't make it home. Millions of their citizens have died in Sudan. Right. The ones that escaped don't have it that great, obviously, and many of them perish in the Libyan Sea off the coast of Greece and on their way to Italy, anywhere they can go. But these people fortunately made it aboard to land where they were quickly. It doesn't take very much to find you on a little island and round you up, and here they came. But in Greece, where humanity still kind of lives, there are refugee centers, and I've been past several of them driving through Greece where they relocate and put them into mini homes. They're not anything attractive. They look like.
You and I didn't grow up in attractive homes.
No, but these look like truck cargo things that are developed into homes or something. And they take care of them until they can find ways to other places in Europe. But even other places in Europe are finding they're getting crowded too.
Right.
So this Marshall Plan stuff of making friends and being a worldly neighbor has benefit. It's going to come back and haunt us as well. We can be arrogant about it or or, put our nose in the air all day long. Why are we wasting our money overseas and stuff? If you don't understand, if your investment is only about what dollars you get back as opposed to what dollars you don't have to spend perhaps, or at least going to bed at night and thinking you've done the right thing.
Well, you've got to know what the right thing is. And speaking of that, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier today. I mean, we have a man who is the chief deputy asshole in the government now, a guy named Stephen Miller, who believes that anybody that is not American in his definition of American, which basically means somebody that is white and somebody that has long history here, then they're the enemy, and we have to send ICE to check all of them out, police in armored vehicles with masks on to scare them, which is something that we've rejected historically. I see him as the Trump antidote to Emma Lazarus's poem on the Statue of Liberty. He wants that to die because he's decided, along with Donald Trump and some other people, that they know what a real American is, and they don't have a clue, in my opinion.
Well, the thing about Greece, you asked what's unique about it too, is every time I turn around, I meet somebody. So now, funny you mentioned that, I'm 1 degree removed from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. I was already one degree, the 1 degree game where you somebody who knew somebody.
It was the actor. Who was
it? Was Kevin Bacon. He's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and by using his name, any actor that ever he was associated, all of them in every movie ever made. But so I'm one Bacon away from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump via this person that was sitting next to me at a restaurant in Athens, our last meal there. Jewish woman, very well placed in New York society in her career, has been a guest at Mar-a-Lago.
Really?
Yeah. Has known Donald Trump for 50 years, calls him a moron.
Really?
Yeah. That's what she said. And what about this Stephen Miller guy? And she goes, she goes, that's the ultimate, I don't think she used the word betrayal, but Stephen, the guy's Jewish.
He's Jewish, yeah, I know.
And so he's parroting, aping all these, so you can say fascism. Fascism has existed in different forms for time since civilization became. Right. Nazism is a whole different. It's a blip on it.
Yeah.
And it offends people to be called Nazis, but fascism is still the underlying thing. But he does a lot of apparent book reading of Nazi people,
right,
and quotes them and acts like them and is role playing them, which she finds like, does he not know that I lost and we lost family members there, and during that period. So she's rather disgusted with him too. And yeah, you can make, and why can't it be a good point, a MAGA point? Let's make America great. Let's make it safe. Make the borders safe. Let's make our city safe, without becoming bad people in so doing.
No, I mean, if you want to be a nihilist, there's plenty of philosophy that has been written about nihilism, and Nietzsche's writings are out there to read. The interesting thing about it is that any effort to make that type of society has ended in failure, but the cost has been amazing and it's been terrible. The thing about a guy like Miller is he's just like Trump, in my opinion, on a different plane. He is pursuing grievances that he's had since he was a kid. And there's a lot of stuff being written about that now.
That explains why RFK is our HHS guy then, because he'll just throw any real theory out the window and say, hey, if these guys just, toss horseshoes in the air, they'll cure themselves.
Well, and the problem with him is he knows better. I mean, his father, we always have to say this now because as Democrats, as liberal Democrats particularly, we have always put it to the side the philandering of the entire Kennedy family, almost. I don't mean to condemn a whole family, but RFK and JFK and their father and Ted Kennedy, who I met, and I admired all of them because they understood what noblesse oblige is. And that is if you've got yours, it doesn't mean you just keep yours like Donald Trump and make more. You have an obligation to help those less to you. John Kennedy did that. Robert Kennedy and Ted Kennedy did that. The Shrivers did that. Eunice Shriver taught her kids better than RFK is showing. And so he deserves even greater condemnation in some respects than these other people who may not have had that. He knows better.
Miller knows better, too. The question that I come back to is, he's part of the administration. He was this silent, crazy guy in the first administration, too. People kind of chuckled at the guy because he was such an oafish clown. He put spray paint on his head one day on the TV. Did you see that? He
No.
put the fake hair on his head for an interview, and like on Fox or CNN, and it kind of dripped off, like really just awful. The poor guy. I mean, he's got real issues, in terms of his self-esteem, apparently. But who's the cart and who's the horse in that relationship? Is Trump using Miller to his own end, or is Miller using Trump to his end because he can be manipulated? Apparently can be manipulated with all kinds of, praise and grandiose statements and, make him feel good about himself. Because it's just really, what are the odds that two of the least empathetic people in the entire, add in Elon Musk, I think he's the guy that said he did not like the word empathy, the three with the most unempathetic all end up in the same circle.
Well, sharks swim in packs too, and so and there are also parasites that swim with them and get fat swimming with them, and so
that's cool. I like that.
One of the problems that we do have when we get off on other people, and although I think talking about Miller is important, it's just like talking about Charlie Kirk, which we'll move to in a minute. May his soul rest. But one of the things we get off is we get off of the main point when we're talking about a lot of these other people that swim with Trump. The main point is that whale. He is the great orange whale, and he is the one that's leading the pack here, and it's what he says that they're willing to follow, and it is he who continues to drive us to places we don't and shouldn't go, and he's the one that is always going to say something really stupid that somebody else is going to say. We can use that as part of the metronome to get the beat going so our people will follow us. And that is where we've got to focus on. And so I think with that, maybe we can move a little bit to Charlie Kirk, because we told everybody that we would kind of give our opinions about that, and we avoided it.
I didn't avoid it when I left. Charlie Kirk, he was breathing God's air. He was alive when I left. I don't know what happened other than what I saw. So
I didn't mean to say we had avoided it, but we've kind of put it off. We said last week we'd get to it a little bit, so we can talk a little bit about it. But before we do that, we have to have our Greek words of the day.
Well, how about, here's an easy one for you. Dikigoros.
Okay, it's not easy.
Means attorney.
Okay, all right.
I don't know what the subroots. Dikigoros.
It starts with the name or the word dick.
There we go.
I'm not happy with that.
Yeah. But that's just one. Here's two. And these are two important. Dikigoros, you being one. Two, eleftherios.
What?
And the other one is thanatos. Okay, so if you say those together and put the or in it, eleftherios, that's the or thanatos.
God, I should know that too, because thanatopsis,
okay.
Thanatos.
Yeah, well, you're close. Well, it's 9 syllables when you do that. There are 9 stripes on the Greek flag.
Okay, and it means
freedom or death.
Thanatos.
Eleftherios y thanatos. Freedom or death. That's the stripes meaning on the Greek flag.
Okay.
And I keep saying if you've been to Greece, you don't have to go to Greece to see this, but all over Greece you see it. That flag waves everywhere.
It's white and blue.
Everywhere.
White and light.
It's blue, the color of blue for the sea, white for the heavens. It's got the Christian cross in the left corner.
Right.
So it has those four kind of symbolic things. But everywhere you look, there's a Greek flag painted on the hillside. It's everywhere. And, the reminders of that freedom or death don't need to be told in a flag because they're all over everywhere. There are monuments thousands of years old to people who fell at Marathon.
Right.
550 years before Christ that changed world history at Thermopylae, at the Battle of Salamina, the naval battle that absolutely changed world history.
Yeah, it did.
It didn't change American. It didn't change a battlefield. It changed world history
because the Persians were invading.
They'd already just defeated the Greek armies at Thermopylae, and it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Well, it's like warm springs, warm towers. That's what it means, something like that. Anyway, I'm tired and dizzy, so forgive me. Thermo is warm. So at that battle, the Spartans were at the front of it. The 300 Spartans, they died. Became a heroic battle, but the battle was lost. Persians won the battle. At the sea, there was a battle taking place, and some of the Persian fleet lost there, was beaten back there, which helped because the Greek naval leader, Themistocles, took the Greek navy south to Athens, told the Athenians, better get your ass on the road because here they come. You can't hide an army of 100,000 people. Athens cleaned out, scattered. The Persians ransacked it. At Thermopylae, there was a trader that he told Xerxes, if you want to get to the Greeks, take this certain mountain pass and go around it, and you'll come up on their rear and you'll have them surrounded. So they did, and that's how they won the land battle. In the sea battle, Themistocles played a tricky hand, and he went after the same fish with kind of the same ruse. Somebody went into the Xerxes' camp and said the Greek navy is leaving tomorrow morning. The crack of dawn, they're going to be sailing this direction. If you go here and here, you're going to surround them, and you'll be able to kill them all in no time. They fell for it. And the Greeks came out with triremes, which, 3 levels of oarsmen. They were the battleship of the day, or the destroyer of the day. And they sank the entire Persian fleet by ramming them. These things, you get 10 knots with people rowing, pretty high speed.
Yeah. Ram
them, then the Marines aboard them. We just go over and just start massacring. The blood turned the sea red.
Right.
The Greeks lost 30 ships, and they lost their entire navy, and Persia went back to Persia. Well, had that battle not been won, Italy was next.
Right.
Or whatever, Rome was next, the region of Rome. It wasn't called Italy or Rome at the time. And next after that, Spain or France or England or wherever. The intent was then to expand westward, and they were stopped there, cold. So on the bus we were talking about, I said, nobody really knew about it. I said, the thing about it is this. Had the Greeks lost, nobody would be on this bus right now.
No, that's true.
There would be no bus.
Right. Western civilization would not have grown the way it did. For all those who complain about it, that's who you have to blame, I guess. But those of us who believe Western civilization is a good thing have them to honor. It's kind of like the Battle of Lepanto, where the Venetians did the same thing.
I think it's a celebration of that today, or real close to now.
We're pretty close, yeah. And
Cervantes was wounded there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because today is the feast day of the Holy Rosary. So yeah. So this is the day, the Battle of Lepanto. Those who don't know about that should read about it. I won't be able to explain it as well as John did the Battle of Thermopylae and
well, they didn't do it that well. The word means warm gates or hot gates.
Yeah.
That's what it means. So, hey, but the thing there is there's monuments everywhere. That was the point. For thousands of years, people have held their ground there. I mean, that's part of the reason why when people go to Greece, they are either stunned by how in the hell did they build that 3,000 years ago, or how did we all survive? Because they always come back and say, if not for that temple, that way of thought, that philosopher that lived, we wouldn't be doing, Indo-European kind of culture here. We would be doing something else. And it just changed everything, and I believe for the better. But those monuments remain. They're everywhere. I'll tell you two, and we got to go on to what you want to talk about, Mr. Kirk. But the one thing I do know about Kirk is he was instantly martyred, and we talked about the creation of martyrs in these kind of situations, and one side will create one for the good or bad, and each side has their heroes and martyrs and so on. I don't know if he is or isn't a martyr per se, because I don't know what his real life is. I've just read that sometimes he would say meaningful things that were meaningful to Christians and others that were not Christian enough, and I don't understand that dialogue at all, how far right some Christians can be about it. But we went through Arcady, Crete, where 900 Cretans put themselves inside of a monastery loaded up with gunpowder. Rather than submit themselves to the Turks, blew themselves up. The whole town.
Kind of like the Maccabees.
Yeah, and then at last year at a village called Calavrita, where the Germans come in and gunned down 900. All the men over the age of 12, up to 85, died. And there were a couple survivors. One or two still live, in their early 90s and stuff now. But they're martyrs. There are martyrs in in Crete again, where this year a guy that went on our first trip, and he had such a good time. He was one of those guys who went and did a DNA test. And he took the DNA test, and it came out, you're not Scottish.
Yeah.
You're Polish.
Yeah.
Well, his was like, you're not Irish, you're Greek.
Greek.
And he goes, well, you got to be shitting me. So, and he knew there was some past, adoption kind of stuff going on in his family. So he rounded up and found, sure enough, 2 other older brothers, and they were Greek. They got the word in Greek typed into their name, brothers.
Uh-huh.
And then kept going and found out he's related to a guy named Hatzimikalis, what's his last name? Dalianis, who was a Greek martyred at a battle in Crete at the beginning of the Revolutionary War in about 1821, and who was, I think, skinned alive or boiled by the Turks. I think it was skinned alive with his brother watching. Kind of creates a martyr,
Yeah.
In my wife's region of Greece, Rumeli, there's a lodge here even called Athanasios Diakos. It's a lodge honoring the guy from that region who was a fighter against the oppression and during the revolution and so on. They put him on a spit. Imagine, think of it, you can say all kinds of gruesome ways to be killed, but like on a spit.
Spit, yeah.
Boiled. These are, 200 years ago times, and those kind of stories kind of linger.
Well, they linger, and they give a the word martyr really means witness, as I recall. I think that's where it comes from, and they give witness to the people that went before you, and you have to understand who they were, and you have to pick up where they left off, and that's what a martyr is. And we can talk a little bit about Charlie Kirk in a minute in regards to that. But what's fascinating to me when we talk about all of these things is that once again we see you've been to a place where the history, which is so much older than the history of the United States of America, is still revered and taught and considered in that country. And a people's history is so important. The Iliad and the Odyssey are important. The Old Testament is important to Jews to this day, and it should be to Judeo-Christians. But it can't be important if we don't teach it anymore. And we can't be important if, in fact, we're afraid of it because they don't agree with everything that maybe society now has dealt with and decided that is a little bit different than they believed in. And I want to talk a little bit about that with Charlie Kirk. So, we get to him and the issues that come up.
Well, did you have an awareness of the guy before much of one? I
had none, and but then again too, and I mean I'm guilty of this as everyone is. I don't watch Fox News. I watch it every once in a while to see what they're saying on a big day, to see how they're dealing or treating something. But to me, he was just another conservative sycophant, and he's entitled to do that. Where I take issue with this is from my own perspective. See, we're now, once again, we're arguing with a dead man. God rest his soul, he's dead. We're talking about all the things he said and what he meant and all of those things. And that's what the Republican Party, that portion of the Republican Party, and that movement wants us to do. That's how you get to be a martyr. To me, it's a little bit different with him. And I take issue with somebody like Cardinal Dolan, who comes out and immediately, I don't think Cardinal Dolan really knew him that well. Maybe he did. If he did, he didn't go deeply into who
Cardinal
he was.
Dolan, he's kind of the opposite of the current Pope, right, politically?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm going to get to. I mean, the thing with Dolan is, I tell people all the time at the 8:30 Mass, when they come up and ask me, he goes, well, when is the bishop going to do this Mass? And I say, you never see red or at an 8 o'clock or 8:30 Mass. And they go, what do you mean? Well, red is the color of the cardinals or the bishop's hat. I said, because really the truth of the matter is, A, they're too busy. They're run ragged. It's just like anything else. The early Mass is generally for the parish priest or the assistant or whatever, and you're not going to see it. But really, in my mind, it says something else, and it says something that Pope Francis spoke about so eloquently. He said the bishop, the cardinal, they're the pastor. And the pastor should smell like the sheep. And that means you're with not just the moneyed people, not just the big donors. They're important. Not at the high mass, we used to call it, not just at the 11 o'clock mass or at the choir. You're occasionally with the sheep because you got to smell like the sheep if you're going to be a real pastor of your church, which is what they're intended to do. And I understand the problems with that. Cardinal Dolan came to Utah not that long ago, and I had a discussion about that with one of the deacons at the church, a guy I really respect. I said, you know what? It was funny. When he was here, and I read in the paper, he was down in BYU speaking. The Cathedral of the Magdalene is the center church of the Diocese of Utah. I didn't see him. I didn't hear him come in and talk to us. I heard him speak glowingly about a lot of other Utahns. I didn't even hear him speak glowingly about the Catholic community in Utah. And he goes, well, you know, Ron, he goes, they're busy. But he was at the 11 o'clock Mass one Sunday. And I go, there you go. You never see red at the 8 o'clock Mass or the 8:30 Mass. And that's who he became. Working class guy from Wisconsin. He becomes the head of New York. He falls into what a number of cardinals have fallen into when they become the leader of the church in a big city like that. And that is, they project an attitude that they get to tell everybody what the truth is. And recently, because he said that about Charlie Kirk, he has taken some real shots from other people. Michael Steele, the politician who is a Republican, was the chairman of the Republican Party. I knew somewhere that he was Catholic. It may be just the way he talked. But the other night I saw him on TV, and he went off on Dolan. And he said something that a lot of us say some of the time, because it's within the church. You don't get to tell other bishops or cardinals what to do in their area of control. And Steele said this to Dolan directly. He should shut up and not tell us in Washington, D.C. how to practice our politics or our faith. Because we have a bishop, we have a cardinal that can tell us to do that. And so the pushback against him has been great. And Pope Leo XIV came out and basically said to Dolan and others who are making this young man a Christian saint, and he didn't talk about that directly, that Catholicism and Christianity is not a smorgasbord where you pick what you want. There are certain things. And three of the biggest things are, you love your brother, you take care of your brother, you love the alien, as it says in the Bible, the immigrant. And if you're opposed to abortion, you also have to be opposed to the death penalty. And for those of us on the left, if you're opposed to the death penalty, then you've got to, in a sense, be opposed to abortion. Now, it's nuanced, and we all know that, but the pushback against Dolan has been pretty tough. And when he referred to him as just like St. Paul, I could have puked. And for this reason, he is like St. Paul, but he is St. Paul as Saul, the man that preceded St. Paul. Saul was a very smart man, wise in the ways of Judaism, a Pharisee, somebody who had sat at the feet of Gamaliel, his grandson, a man who said early on that all religion comes, Judaic religion, comes to the thing that not doing something hateful to your brother that you would want done to you. That's how he phrased it. Hillel and his grandson Gamaliel are two of the people behind modern Judaism. And to read them is amazing because of their attitude. And Charlie Kirk is the total opposite of that. Charlie Kirk is Saul, who took that and decided that he was going to persecute Christians because they were Jews and they got it wrong. And so to say that he is Paul, and I'm talking for myself here, only for myself, that really irritated me because he was a divider. He said bad things about Catholicism. He always tempered what he said. And this is going back and looking at things, not taking anything out of context. He would always say something to the effect, oh, I disagree with that. Yeah, but I still love you. Well, okay, you can do that, and that's good. You don't have to tell people you hate. But he did hate. And you know what? He wrote his own epitaph. He said that it's likely, or words, I'm not going to get the quote correctly, that he could be shot. But he preached the Second Amendment consistently. And so, to me, God rest his soul. I pray for him and the family left behind. I think it's wonderful that his wife said that we don't have to have the death penalty in her case. A true understanding of Christianity. I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk was wrong in everything, but I'll take it to my side of the aisle, which is the Catholic Church. And guys like Dolan, that's not your role. You can't do it.
Right. And well, we grew up here as non-members of the dominant religion here, Ron. So my whole life, again, repeating what I've repeated before, has been not good enough, or our church, our leaders didn't get the message when the new plates were written and all that kind of stuff. And we are wrong. Everything that we believe in is wrong. That's what I was told from the time I was young by being Greek Orthodox. It's the wrong faith. That's what my Mormon friends were saying when they'd go to church and so on. Maybe yours was different, but that's what I heard. No. Was yours different?
No.
Okay, so I didn't know, but you looked at me like, well, that's all I heard. And yet I can trace back to Paul, mentioning Paul, he converted the first pagans of Europe at the steps of the Acropolis.
Right.
On Paul's, it's called Mars Hill. That's where he preached. That's where the first pagans made the conversion to Christianity. It was right there and had been there 100 times.
It became his job.
Yes, and so down the road, he wrote the letters to the Corinthians. So Paul plays a pretty big role in Greek Orthodoxy, and he therefore cast that long shadow of what it really means to be a Christian, because he was speaking 50 years removed or something like that, 30, 50 years after the the death of Jesus Christ. So our church hasn't changed a hell of a lot in all those years.
No.
But I kept hearing when I was young how wrong we were, over and over and over and over, from people whose church and others like it have changed immensely over time. And to the point where it comes to where a fellow like Charlie Kirk, whatever he said that was mean-spirited, if you could take it that way, or wrong, or bigoted, misogynist, anti-black, you name it. I've seen those accusations. Those are the one side of it. The other side was, but he always mentioned Christ in his statements and so on. Okay, but he's not Christian enough either in this new world, because he was apparently not Christian. He wandered a little bit too softly in that Christian nationalist movement.
Right.
That wasn't Christian enough for the people that were too Christian, that weren't Christian. I don't get this whole mishmash of how people can be aligned with that person as their savior and be so willing to sacrifice people all the time. Well, it just doesn't register with me. I don't get why their resort is to let's just shoot somebody.
Well, I don't either. And I mean, the two young women that were just killed, forget what state it was in, by a man who liked Charlie Kirk. And they had said bad things about him, and he ran over them with his car. Those things. But the point that I make, and the reason I make it the way it did, is I'm not going to judge him. I believe that we'll all be judged by a merciful God. I know my failings, and I know that I can get on my high horse too. So I'm not going to but I will call out somebody who is of my particular faith, that lane we travel, for doing things that are purely political.
That's what I was going to,
And so, like Cardinal Dolan, who sat at a table with Donald Trump, and I'll say it again, the fact that Kamala Harris didn't show up at that Al Smith dinner still rankles me. I cannot give money to the Democratic Party. They gave that away. They could have been there as a observant symbol of what Trump and Dolan believe in politically. And they wouldn't do it because they thought they were too good to sit there, or they didn't have the guts to sit there. I will speak out about guys like Dolan, because you know what? Dolan's forgot his role. His role is to smell like sheep. He smells like the perfume of people like Donald Trump that are sitting
What
next to him.
does Governor Cox smell like then? Because he was purely political. He couldn't believe it was one of his own. He said something like that, right?
But at
what
least,
kind of a deal? I get it. What at least he did something
At
good.
least he said it. At least he said a truism, which is, you know what? Maybe we got to stop jumping to the conclusion.
He jumped to the conclusion. Okay,
And he
I'll
shouldn't.
give you that nod. He does. He got that, and he got some notoriety out of it. He's now a pack leader of some sort in the New Republic and what's going to happen after Trump thing. But his first reaction was political, and it was that only somebody on the left, indoctrinated on the left, could do such a crime. Never mind that the two senators in Wisconsin or wherever it was, Minnesota, had been gunned down, and he didn't say a goddamn thing about that. Never mind that Mike Lee trumpets all of this kind of stuff over and over and over again, and suddenly becomes silent when it is one of their own, if you want to call it their own. It's one of us. We're all part of the same thing. So quit aligning with a political agenda to score your point or something. The guy died. My goodness.
And he died, and he
broad
shouldn't
daylight.
have died.
No, he shouldn't have. No, he shouldn't have.
And I guess the one thing, I don't know how we wrap this up, because it's difficult to think about when we think about these things. When I was thinking about this, I thought of John Lennon's hymn, which it really is, Imagine. And I thought about, I loved that song, but I was always troubled by it for a number of reasons. It was basically based on my faith. I mean, when he said, imagine there's no heaven, all this stuff. And the responses to it, which were, Bob Dylan came out quickly with, you got to serve somebody, John. And the other song, which was by Steely and Dan, which is Only a Fool Would Say That, where they really got to the heart of it. And this kind of relates to Charlie Kirk and other people like him, and even Ron Yengich. People can call me for my contradictions. It's fair. But only a fool would say that. Really cuts to the heart. Really, John? Really? You're in your white hat, you're in your plush thing, and you're going to tell the common person what they have to say or believe. Maybe you're not the guy to be saying it. And sometimes we have to think about it. And that's where Mike Lee and Cox and all of these other people come in, including people on the left like you and I. We got to be careful what we say. And if we say something that is contradictory or wrong, we get a right to express it. But we don't get a right to condemn others because they do want to call us on it.
Well, then continue to express, because if the tea leaves are right, we may not have that right very much longer.
Yeah.
I'm just referring casually. We got to close out, but like I saw some of the Pam Bondi stuff, today. Who every time somebody would ask him a question, she would turn it into like, well, don't you want to have a safe border? Yeah. You always say bad things about Trump and da-da-da-da. And it's like, the idea that we must protect Donald Trump's feelings to all end and he can persecute anybody is actually quite frightening. And that was the lesson, I guess, to pull it back into with Greece. That's what I kept getting asked. Like, what did you guys forget something along the way?
Exactly.
Did you forget the word Naziism? You're so offended by the word Naziism, just take it off the table. Think of the actions and the words and the processes that happened. This happened. In the program, well, not the programs, but the attacks into the Jewish ghettos, the people who are of a different sexual orientation or racial or the religion were pushed aside. People that were the humorists of the day were pushed aside.
The Romani were pushed.
Yes, and all of it over and over and over. These same steps are the same steps. You don't have to call it Nazism. Don't be bothered by that. Just look at what did happen and say, is this truly a mirror of what happened already? I happen to believe it is, and it's on
I do too.
high speed.
And you said one thing, and it's really important. As a lawyer, it's important to me. It's where truth finds itself with somebody on a witness stand. There are procedures that go through. There's an ability to ask questions, and there is a demand when you have somebody in charge to demand that the person answer the question. What I see more and more from presidents at news conferences or where they ask questions, and politicians, a fair question is asked of them. Historically in America, not always, but generally, The person that was asked a direct question, if you're an elected official or you're on the witness stand under oath, you answer the question. You just can't avoid it by asking another one. And whether it was a Democrat or Republican in a committee meeting, they would turn to the person and say, don't argue, answer the question. And then whoever, then after that, ask a question. The beauty of that, and I did it for years, was if you had a judge who was fair and impartial, which they're supposed to be, and most are, they would look at a witness and say, this is not a time to argue, answer Mr. Yengich's question, or answer the prosecutor's question. And that's where truth comes. Truth is hidden by evasion, and that's what Pam Bondi and the rest of these people do. And we've lost that because it's become political theater, and it isn't a search for truth. If we want truth in America, we've got to demand that the questions be answered truthfully and to the point. You wanted the job, you're sitting on the witness stand, you're under oath. Answer the goddamn question and be honorable about it. That's where we've lost so much, because we have none of that anymore. And I think a lot of people just get fed up with it.
Not the people, too. I mean, we got to go, but hey, there's no recourse to Pam Bondi unless something happens, i.e., another party wins the next election.
Well,
but if the next election process is to have a fair and equitable election are disturbed, it won't happen.
Well,
so you just go this cycle of, okay, let's give up until one day, and it happened over and over. The same final step after martyrdom and after all people get pissed off. The same thing has happened. It happened in the play Les Mis. It happened in Greece. It happened in Poland. It happened in everywhere. The people fight back. And that's not the people on the left or the people on the right. They unite because they all ultimately, the smallest peasant has the same thing in common with the supposed biggest businessman. If he's not powerful, they are all in common. And one of these days, there may be that. And it's sad to think about, but that's what the Europeans were warning me about.
Yeah, I hope we don't have to get there, but you're right. I mean, ultimately, that's what happened. That's what our Declaration of Independence is about. I'm glad you're back safe. I'm sorry about your leg.
Oh, God, I'm dreading getting out of this chair.
Yeah, I'm not sorry about your Cubs. But I hope they lose the third game, so the Brewers pitching staff.
Well, I'm going to give it up for you because of your deep passion for the Brewers. I could live with that because I'm a Cubs fan, and if there's nothing that we know, once every 100 years or so, we win and we don't the rest of the time, and we have a good time. It's okay.
No, it's a good place to go watch a ball game. I'm glad you're back, Johnny.
All right.
God bless
Thanks,
everybody.
Ron.
Take care.
Really will see you.